Hello Internet, Mr. D is back with another edition of Mr. D Likes Rap. Let's get started. So there was a crazy weekend of new releases that kind of all came out around the same time. Takeoff put out his first studio album, Metro Boomin and Swizz Beatz put out projects with a crazy amount of features, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to review after this review that you're watching now. So for this video, I decided to go with one of my favorite artists who hasn't really put out a project in a little while. Today I will be reviewing the new Vince Staples EP, album, who really knows? It's called FM, exclamation mark, yeah! So Vince Staples has had a pretty solid series of releases going back to 2015. There was Summertime '06, that was a double album that offered a lot of classic hits. There was Prima Donna, which was more of a quick-hitting EP that definitely made you want more Vince Staples by the end of that project. And then most recently, he had Big Fish Theory. I only really enjoyed the hit singles, Bag Back, Big Fish, Yeah Right. But now, we have this new album, EP, whatever, and it's a quick 11-track, 22 minutes. It's got a couple interludes, a couple skits mixed in the track list. And I gotta say, from the very first listen, I definitely dug this album. There's this smooth, very glossy vibe throughout the whole project, and it like literally feels like you just threw on a radio in Long Beach, California. There are a few songs that maybe miss, but overall, I'm a huge fan of this one. So, without further ado, let's check out the tracks. Oh, this is so good. It's so good. It's such a good song. Oh my God. I was walking my dog in one of our garbage BC rainstorms, and I was just dancing in the puddles listening to this song. My dog was really confused as to why I was so happy, but this song made it feel like summer. So it opens with this kind of radio interlude, and that sets the tone or the concept for the rest of the project. First verse just hits super hard, and I particularly like these lines here. So there's this acknowledgement of knowing you've done some sketchy things in the past, that realization that maybe you've made decisions that could impact the rest of your life, or even in the afterlife. And I think that's a real mature way of looking at your actions that we don't see a lot in hip-hop. I like that there's this like consideration of consequences, that something you do will have an effect on you in the future. And this next verse is just incredible. Vince he found his groove with the production on this. Check these bars out. And like throughout all these bars, there's this like S sound alliteration that follows the listeners throughout all of these lines. And then you combine that with all the internal rhyme and the end rhyme, and it's just, all of it just works out perfectly. And I gotta say, I'm not a huge T.Y. Dolla $ign fan, but that hook, it's like smooth vegan margarine. It's so smooth. It's so smooth. 100% Mr. D approved. Great way to start a project. So here we have another incredibly catchy song with this really, really infectious chorus. So this song talks a lot about the very gun-focused gang culture that surrounded Vince Staples when he was growing up. And he talks about it in this way where certain guns are designated for maybe certain passages or certain phases of your life, depending on how old you are. It's almost to a point where the guns themselves are embedded in the youth. And I think the chorus definitely emphasizes this idea of all sides being involved in this sort of chaos. And whether it's day or night, inside, outside, it's almost inescapable. All in all, there's a heavy focus on gun violence, but not in kind of an over-the-top, gratuitous, and descriptive way. I see it more as a nostalgic way of looking back on your youth when it was so dangerous. But all in all, sweet beats. Vince has got some decent bars. Pretty good song. Oh, now we're back to that vegan margarine. 100% so smooth. So Vince goes off on this very laid-back beat that goes back and forth between these very spacey synth chords and these soft percussion beats. and there's just too much to focus on lyrically. Like it's so rich with content. But I really get this like 90s hip hop vibe from this track. The whole song is pretty much an ode to that rags to riches story. I think it's more of a taking pride in what you've accomplished and what you've got, so like what you've done so far in your life. And that rings true throughout the whole song. He's in this position because of his hustle and his hard work. So then J-Rock's Course comes in, and it's really hard to believe he pulled off a hook like this. The man is not known for his singing talent, and I love, just a solid message in this course. It just comes back to, I don't need pills, I'm chasing success, that's it, and I'm representing my roots. All in all, killer track. Just keep it going, Vince. Just keep it going. I'm all in now. This is fantastic. This is just too good. I love this song. I'll start with the chorus. It's super catchy, and I did learn 2 new terms from Urban Dictionary. Blurped is being pulled over by the police, and hammer is another term for gun. I feel like I should have known that one. Vince is singing about getting intel about police being in the area, and he knows the consequences of being caught. So it's time to hit the corner, do a relay, pass on the hammer to avoid being caught. Maybe a teacher, but sometimes it's me doing the learning. So Vince also throws out some references to Bunchy Carter, who was a member of the Southern Carolina Black Panther Party, and Ron Karenga, who created Kwanzaa. His last verse really hits that idea of consequences and dealing with it, and owning up for being caught, doing some of the sketchy things that have come up throughout the majority of the album. So Vince is throwing out some super clever bars on this one, and I like how it took about 12 listens to catch this, but the very end of the song ties back to one of the closing skits on the album, which I think just shows that there was a lot of focus, a lot of effort. Vince really had a really good vision of what he was trying to accomplish with this quick little EP or album or whatever. But I love it so much. Next track. So here we just get a little quick snippet of Earl Sweatshirt. So I've never really been a huge fan of him, but I really liked this contribution on Vince's album. And these last lines that he threw out were a really sweet addition. So Earl's father was a South African poet and essayist whose writings focus on Pan-African liberation. Such an awesome thing to know about Earl Sweatshirt. I'm so glad I know that now. Unfortunately, he did pass away earlier this year, but really cool for Earl Sweatshirt to sneak this little snippet, this little verse on Vince Staples' project. So I think of this one as definitely a step away from what we've heard so far. It's not bad, but it's not great. Verse 1, I'm the best. Verse 2, don't mess with me. Next track. Another kind of meh track again. The beginning of the song just reaffirms Vince's status when he was up to no good back in the day. This one definitely slips into more of glamorizing gang culture. And I'm not super crazy about these kind of verses. There's E40's verse. I think it's a verse. Not really a nice addition to this one. Certainly some clever lines coming from Vince. But all in all, I think this one misses. Next. I'm super close to just picking up the phone and seeing if I can actually win Kalani tickets. Throughout this whole album, all they talk about is winning Kalani tickets, and I'm going to call the number. I'm so close to calling the number. As for the song, kind of a bland chorus. Just really not feeling the feature on this one. I definitely vibe with Vince's verse. It's quick, it's catchy, there's some solid rhymes, more alliteration, super nice flow over the production, but feature, meh, kind of meh. Next track. I don't listen to Tyga that much, and I think I'm just gonna continue not listening to Tyga that much. Next. So I know this is a skit, and more often than not, I don't usually care about skits that much, but this skit, I love this skit. Like, I listen to this every time it goes on the album. Every time. I never skip it. I'm constantly trying to think of my own 7 celebrities whose first name starts with V. Vince Vaughn, Venus Williams, Vin Diesel. Oh, man, I can't do it. I'm definitely not ready for those Kalani tickets. And like the guy running the DJ booth, his name's Big Boy. I love how he pronounces the word category. He says it like category. He's like, are you ready for the category? That, I love it so much. Every time I hear that word, I say it out loud, category, and it's just such a fun way to say that word. Try it, category. Oh my God, I love it. Skit of the year, 2018, I'm calling it. Last track, here we go. And this is how you end on a high note. Yes, Vince is putting on his very pessimistic, realistic, more pensive voice for this track, and it's insanely appropriate. Like, to spend an album where there's a lot of focus on that very glossy nostalgia of what it was like growing up in Long Beach, Vince takes this moment to focus on the negative. And it's soulful, it's filled with painful memories, and it has this like dreamlike spacey production. Let's look at some lyrics. Like, I don't know, this just, like, these lines, they feel like they could be from an entirely different project. It's so deep, it's very just dark and realistic. And Vince has this kind of feeling of like a lack of regret and just a full-on acceptance of consequences. Check out the rest of this verse. I could talk about the whole thing. It's really fantastic. And my God, Kalani's hook. I wish I got those tickets. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it connects so well with this tone that Vince kind of adapted for this song. Some days were about counting money, running the streets, feeling like the king of the world, but friends and family were still getting killed. And that's gonna leave an imprint on you as you're growing up. It's a beautiful hook, and I swear one day, I'm gonna win those tickets. I'm calling it one day. And these last few lines, they sum up Vince's verse and song so perfectly. Like, despite your best intentions to make it big and support those around you, it's hard to ignore the fact that you've lost a lot of people on the way to get there. And that right there is a powerful, powerful theme. Atta be Vince. I love it. For my final thoughts, I definitely believe that the positives, the very glowing positives, outweigh the somewhat negatives of this album. Vince Staples, he needs to be in your rotation. He's too good. He is so good. Check out his other projects. Listen to his albums. I know you'll find something you'll like. Vince took a bit of a risk with this radio concept on the EP album, whatever, and I think it paid off big time. And the tracks that I love on this project make up for those meh tracks in the middle. And when it comes to the message, there is this glamorization of gang culture, but I think this was Vince Staples' reality when he was growing up. And he does a fantastic job of telling these narratives from Southern California, describing what it was like in his youth. And I think that last track definitely provides a little bit of a redemptive quality, a reassurance that there is a focus on the negative and the tragedy and the grief. And that comes up in Vince's stories, regardless of the glamorization that came up in some of the other tracks. Let's check Mr. D's report card. So, thanks for watching Mr. D Likes Rap. Like if you like what you heard, let me know what I should review next, and subscribe if you want updates on my next videos. Thanks for watching.